United States grew up playing games like this. Let me read the rule book of the game of Risk. It says, the object of the game is to occupy every territory on the board and, in so doing, eliminate all other players. This concept that we must occupy all areas in order to win is deeply embedded inside of most Americans' brains. And we confuse this with strategy. We think so long as we have our fingers in every single pie, control every single country, and tell everybody what to do, we win. And to do that, all you have to do is have the biggest army, the biggest navy, and the biggest air force in the entire world. And everybody will then surrender to us and do as we say, and we'll have no more problems. This infantile view of strategy infects absolutely everything. Instead of outwitting other people, instead of keeping track of what really matters, we do these fantasy games. For example, if it costs a fortune to occupy the entire planet and have the biggest navy, air force, and so on, you'll go bankrupt. Every single empire that's gone bankrupt loses their empire. They not only that, they oftentimes lose their necks, they lose their own countries. They fall into chaos. So it's absolutely vital that you avoid spending too much money trying to dominate the entire planet, okay? This should be embedded in every single lesson that they teach in military schools. If something costs too much, if the price is too dear, they have to say it's a Pyrrhic victory. General Pyrrhus won all his wars and he lost everything. He's not the only one to do that. Napoleon was a great tactician. He could win almost any battle he was in. He was an awful strategist. That's why he kept winning battles with Russia, and he kept moving deeper and deeper into Russia until he ended up at the gates of Moscow, entered Moscow, and then lost everything, including his own kingdom, his empire. Gone in a flash. Russia won that because they had a better strategy. They retreated, they didn't engage him, they didn't even fight him very much on his exit. They just made sure he left very quickly and lost as many people as possible to the cold, hunger, and other hazards of a retreat. Retreats are always more dangerous than advances. Now, I'm going to read a newspaper story from our war in Afghanistan. Remember, Afghanistan is one of the biggest countries on this map. It's a keystone country, and therefore strategically important, evidently. It's also a bear trap. Armies have marched in, and they barely can escape. Usually they have their arms and legs torn off. It's an extremely dangerous place to go into. Sergeant Mike Matthews packed his mortar system into the back of his Jeep and bent over to pick up a leftover plastic wrapper as he prepared to saddle up for the 3-hour ride back to base. Up the road, amid cackling chickens, buck, 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 and amused children, oh, they were laughing all right. They knew what was going to happen. The naval commander, Caleb Kerr, and his lieutenant chuckled and bid farewell to the cheery Afghan police commander. In the Vietnam War, the friendliest people were the Viet Cong. They loved us during the day. They liked to talk to us. They liked to get information from us. They followed us around like puppies. They sent their children to go track us. And then at night they would attack. Ah, what a surprise! At the end of the Vietnam War, in fact, one of the top, most trusted members of the entire country, the people in the military, turned out to be the chief commander of the South Vietnamese Viet Cong forces. He thought it was very funny when he revealed to the reporters who he really was. The aircraft surveying the rocks detected nothing unusual. In an instant, however, the mountainside above the rocky town of Doab erupted in muzzle flashes. For the next several hours, the American soldiers in a convoy of 18 vehicles scrambled for cover as rockets and mortars rained down from the mountainsides, and U.S. helicopters swept in to evacuate the injured. Just like in Vietnam. Dun, 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 you know, in the movie when the helicopters come in and they're playing Wagner. Well, that's what they did. Along with several of the best soldiers out of Fort Hood, Texas, Lieutenant Dashiell Barretta, 24, displayed composure in the face of fire as his mortar team fell to Taliban bullets. Indeed, over the next 5 hours, 3 insurgent commanders with an estimated 4 dozen fighters would ambush the American soldiers at 3 different locations along this road, wherever there was a sheer drop-off. The Chinese wrote a book about how you're supposed to avoid these sorts of situations. They were quite familiar with this because they fought in places like Tibet. Everyone knows who has any military training that if you're going to ambush somebody, the best place on earth is to wait till they're on a steep, narrow, windy road. And then you make things happen. Landslides, you shoot at them, you blow up the road so the vehicles tumble down and so on. And obviously the Afghanis know all about this because this is how they fought for thousands of years. If we read the history of the military excursions into Afghanistan, they almost always have this same story. They fought the Afghanis seemed to have surrendered, they disappeared, everything was well, the children were smiling, the chickens were clucking, and the commander of the village said, "Hi, have fun on the road home to your home base," and then they were all killed. You can ask the British about that. It even happened to them. We can ask the Russians. It happened to them on a daily basis. Only the fast reaction of U.S. soldiers and medics would avert what Commander said could well have been a slaughter of American and Afghan forces. In the end, the Americans would boast, "We kicked some ass up there." This sort of infantile behavior is unforgivable. Our military should at least be semi-professional. That sounds like a little child. "I kicked ass and I ran away." Well, you didn't win. If you hit somebody and they're beating the heck out of you, and then you run away, you lost. Period. I knew this when I was a 5-year-old. So what are these older people saying this? What's the matter with them? And they have military training too. The insurgents would also claim a victory. Well, duh, they held the territory, they destroyed our equipment, they drove us away. Obviously, that's a victory. Ta-da! Victory for them. Dancing on the splintered remains of an abandoned U.S. Humvee and vowing to keep the Americans from establishing a foothold north of their base in Kalagush, Nuristan, the Afghanis were happy. The American strategy in Nuristan reverses the old U.S. Marine Corps version of counterinsurgency. Clear, hold, and build. It stresses building first, with the hopes the Nuristanis will eventually see the light and side with us. "There's a ton of bad guys in Nuristan, but we don't have the resources to go after them right now," said Kerr. "We will not win by killing more people." Now, first of all, talking about them as tons of bad guys is, again, very infantile. That's the sort of thing kids say after they have a mud ball fight in the desert, like when I was a child. Even then, I would consider that very infantile. The resource problem is not our problem there. We're in there to save the people, to elevate them, to bring civilization to them, etc., etc. We're not there to butcher them. We could easily go in there and kill everybody. But of course, that would make us evil. This is the war against terror. If we go in and murder all the civilians who are resisting our occupation of their native lands, we are terrorists. In fact, we are an evil empire. And that is what's wrong with our strategy. We can't win if we want to be an evil empire. Even when we pretend we're doing something nice for them, they know our intention is to dominate them, control them, and make them do things they don't want to do. And so they'll fight us. End of the story. This was Elaine Supkis of Culture of Life News.